Order the Clarkston Community Schools Board of Education regular meeting for October. If you could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. McLean, could you please call the roll?
Yes. Mrs. McInnes?
Here.
Mrs. Egan?
Here.
Mrs. Sivers?
Here.
Mr. Heyer?
Here.
Mrs. Love?
Here.
Mrs. Crane?
Here.
Mr. Neat?
Here. We have a quorum. We will proceed. The consent agenda is before you. There will be one additional item, is item 2.4.3, which will be another expulsion of a Clarkston Junior High School student. So if you could please add that as item 2.4.3, and with that change, I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented. Support.
Motion made and supported. This does require a roll call vote, so Mrs. McLean, if you could please call the roll again.
Mr. Heyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Crane?
Yes.
Mrs. Love?
Yes.
Mrs. Egan?
Yes.
Mrs. McInnes?
Yes.
Mrs. Sivers?
Yes.
Mr. Neat?
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Item 3 is citizens' request to address the board. You are given 2 opportunities to address the board. Under this item, item 3.1, you can ask to request the board or request to address the board on any topic that's on tonight's agenda. And then under item 9, you may address the board on any topic. While making comments, please state your name and address. Direct your comments here to the board president. Each person may speak for up to 2 minutes. Per established procedures, the board will not respond to questions or interact with the speaker during public comment, although we may refer the matter to our administration for further handling. There is a sign-up sheet in back. Is there anybody under... Okay, we have one student or one individual that would like to address the board on student representation, and we will take that up under item 9. Item 4 is our superintendent update. Dr. Ryan.
Thank you, President Neat. Well, to our Clarkston community, we are in the meat of our school year. How time quickly flies, and I can say with great assurance that it's great to see all the wonderful things going on in our classrooms, on the ball fields, in our extracurriculars, and in all aspects of our school district. Next week we have our marching band is going to be performing in competitions. We're excited. We want to come out and cheer them on next Saturday night. Looking at the various sports that we have that have not everything from field hockey, to football, to you name it. Our volleyball team is crushing it. It's really great to see. And I'm also hearing back this past Friday that we had an amazing, spectacular event at our junior high as we continue to build up the walls on the new gymnasium. They were delivering major supports with a giant crane, and it had all the neighborhood kids and I think many of our teachers out kind of looking at the process. So I tip my hat to Mr. Goodman and Auk and everybody involved with that continued work. We really appreciate as that new foundation of our future comes to bear within our community. It's really, really, really exciting. I also want to highlight this week for all parents in our community to make contact, reach out, and have those conferences with your child's teacher. It's incredibly important to keep that homeschool communication. I want to tip my hat also to all of our teachers and staff members with all the extra hours they're doing this week to really reach out and provide that home-to-school connection, which is wonderful. And I just want to wish everybody a happy fall as we get into this next phase of our year. Thank you, Mr. Neat.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. I have noted that I skipped over item 1.6, so I will read the public statement. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community hearing. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in agenda items 3 and 9. Moving back then to our presentation items, we have two. Item 5.1 is our strategic planning community survey results. Dr. Ryan, do you want to introduce this?
Yep, I just want to say as part of our overall strategic planning process, it's definitely a school, community, family, and just all elements of our community adding input so that as we move forward into this next strategic plan 2030, that we're taking time to really rest and get a strong sense of where we have been before we really push into and lean into where we're going. So I'll introduce Ms. Nancy Mahoney on behalf of the team to come up, and if you would like the entire team to please share that update.
Good evening. Yes, we put out the community survey last spring, and we were very fortunate to be able to partner with John Good, who is a very strong leader out of Oakland Schools, who leads a lot of research, evaluation, and assessment through Oakland Schools. And so he has put our survey results into a nice presentation for us to share with you this evening, which I think our community's voice is very important as we think about developing our new strategic plan. So, John Good, welcome to the podium. Welcome to our board meeting tonight, and I just want to thank you in advance for all the work that you've done to put this together for us.
Good evening. So, as I said, I'm Dr. Good with Oakland Schools. Also helping with this project were Jessica Clark and Dr. Paré as well. They just couldn't make it tonight. So an overview, I think you've heard some of this already, but this is done as part of the strategic planning process. We did a very similar survey in 2018, and Oakland Schools was asked to help again in 2024, and this was administered in May, and we had 1,900 respondents, 1,928 to be exact. And we went through the results, and this was of no cost to the district. This is something provided by Oakland Schools to all districts and PSAs in Oakland County. So the areas of focus, very similar to last time. We had district, what are the priorities that the respondents see for the school district? What are their opinions on student growth, instruction, and learning opportunities? Questions around the whole child, operational questions, community partnerships, and district communications. So as I said, you had total responses of 1,928. As of the 2022 American Community Survey, the population of your school district of all residents is 44,855. This leaves us with a response rate of 4.3%, which in the world of community surveys is quite good. And in fact, it's an improvement. Last time you were at 4%, now we're at 4.3%. In our work at Oakland Schools, we consider any community survey with 3% or higher as a good response rate. Because frankly, that number includes everyone, even those under 18. So a large portion of the respondents have been with the community over 10 years. You can see here as 31% was the largest block, but you can also see 8 to 10, 8 to 10, still 11%. It's quite a few people have been here a while. And here you have a map of the zip codes that all respondents gave for where they live. You can see, of course, the Clarkston area is the deepest color, but there is a spread across the county and even into some other counties as well. The majority of respondents had 2 children. You can see here, majority of respondents really have preschool through 12 children. And here's an age distribution. You'll see on the left, this is a distribution of the ages of those that responded to your survey. And to the right, you have what the U.S. Census Bureau gives as the total population within your district in different age ranges. So you can see for the respondents, the majority of responses were from 30 to 54 years old, but you do have representation across the spectrum. Majority of respondents were married, women, and or held an advanced degree, by that a master's or bachelor's. You can see the gender is 74% as women, and marital status you had 83% were married. Limited racial and ethnic diversity represented. Matches the population. And you have prefer not to answer is number 87. I would say just you don't really interpret that as anything else than just not wanting to answer. These are the roles of those that answered. One area that we like to stress is that people can be multiple roles. I can be a staff member, I can be a parent, I can be a business owner all at the same time. So you'll see that these numbers do not all add up to 1,932 because you could be many of those things at once. However, in our analysis, which you'll see later, there are times where we broke out different groups to see how they answered differently. These are the key findings, and it's really a preview of many things we'll talk about here tonight. You have an increased response rate from before, and your top priorities remain largely the same from 2018 to now, which I would say with a response group that has been here for 10 years or longer for the priorities to stay stable is something to point out as a very positive thing. You have a small decrease in some areas of the community agreeing about the offerings, whether they're challenging and preparing students for the next steps of life. Parent and staff largely agree on the priorities. You'll see some in the slides, but also some I can tell you from our analysis. And a positive shift in promoting kindness, empathy, and respect. And there is support for maintaining high-quality staff, challenging curriculum, facilities, and technology, and an interest in varied community programs. So if you look at this is whether this was asking what were the top priorities, and there was a list presented to any respondents. What is this very important to you? Anywhere from very unimportant to very important. And you can see that the highest three right here, which were the same three that were the highest in 2018, are recruit and retain high-quality staff, prepare students to use life skills after high school, and address mental health concerns of staff and students. You saw that school safety and security moved into, and maintain school facilities moved into the top 5. However, you also see the difference between it and the other ones below it aren't that large, so this isn't to be overinterpreted, just that there's been some shuffling here. And the bottom 4 priorities remain the same, and I would point out that those bottom 4 are still in the range of neutral to somewhat agree. Also a positive finding. This here is the response we're asked to agree or disagree with these statements. This would be where you can see here, and I'm going to take a moment here to point out, you can see the blue bars are the responses here, 3 being neutral, 5 being strongly agree, where they agree with the statements. The red bars you see are how much these changed from 2018 to now. And on this slide, you can see these did decrease. So I wanted to get a little more into the analysis of that, but you're still largely looking at positive responses here. Home and school have a shared responsibility for students' growth and academic success remain at the top. So to zero in on this, I took the bottom 4 because they all went down a significant amount, and even the one right above went down some for students are offered many learning opportunities. When I say significant, I'm not saying that in a casual way. It's more of a mathematical term of that's of interest to me that it went down a whole point here in the rating. So in the next slide, I wondered, do we see the same answers for parents and staff for this? And this you can see the blue is, again, everyone overall. The orange are the parents only answers, and the green is the staff only. And you can see here, the big takeaway from this is these are very minor differences. If there was a stark difference in how parents and staff were rating these things, you would see a larger gap between the orange and the green. And even in the ones where CCS supports student growth seems to have the largest difference between the two groups, even that is only a third of like one jump of the scale from agree to strongly agree. We move on to this where we have, again, it's a disagree to agree scale. You can see there aren't many declines. The one decline is minuscule, that 0.02. This one you actually have one that goes up. So all the averages increased in this one, educating the whole child, a positive shift in kindness, empathy, and respect. But full disclosure, that was a new question. Last time the question was slightly said differently and where it was focused in on bullying, so this went up some, but I don't want to overinterpret that too much. But again, I will point out that even the lowest rating, students are able to explore personal interest in their classes, is still between neutral and somewhat agree, which is considered a positive rating. So, what do they like or not like about what is happening? It's all like, frankly. We took one question, which you'll see at the bottom left, CCS has clean and easy to use buildings. We thought that too many things were under that question. It was hard to tell what exactly was being rated there, so we broke it into the 4 items you see above that. CCS has safe and secure buildings, functional buildings, well-maintained and welcoming buildings, and high-quality individual student technology. And you'll find that 3 of those 4 ended up within the top 4 levels of agreement. Again, I would say here this is positive. It's impressive again how stable this has been across 6 different years. You have a focus on recruiting and retaining high quality staff as well shows up here. Again, this is an agreement scale here. Community partnerships. School leaders support the community involvement, and you have strong partnerships with your local groups. You have some decline, but this is, again, the largest decline here is 0.18. I caution you again, I know I'm saying this a lot, but I would not overinterpret this. This is a fraction of 1 point that is going down. You have majority over 4 average for I feel proud in CCS. And even again, the lowest CCS response to changing demographic needs in Clarkston is still in the positive between neutral and somewhat agree. How do you get your information about Clarkston Community Schools? You can see here over half of your total respondents, remember we had 1,900 total respondents, over half of them are saying they're getting this through their district email blasts. Another over half is getting it through the district website, and almost half is getting it through teacher communication. I would say that teacher communication can include many different things. It could be the official communication, or it could be the unofficial communication that parents calling up teachers, emailing, things like that. So it's a very good sign for a district that teacher communication is rated so well. The Clarkston Connections print newsletter, I'd like to point out when this survey was given, that newsletter had only gone out twice before then, so it wasn't surprising, but we decided to add this question this time and do it in the future so we can see if it catches on and how many people become familiar with it. So the last portion of the survey, we had 3 open-ended questions, and this has been done in twofold. There's an analysis for this that I want to share that I went through, made sure that nothing in there was identifying to any person or any part of Clarkston. I changed it to pseudonyms and fed it into AI for common themes, and did quite a bit of probing on what it saw in the sometimes over 1,000 different responses, some in long form, some just a sentence. So we asked 3 questions. In the next 5 years, what do you see as the top priorities for Clarkston Community Schools? We also asked, what other partnerships or programs do you think Clarkston Community Schools should explore? And lastly, do you have ideas on how Clarkston Community Schools can help Clarkston be a place more people want to live? So the results of this have also been shared with Clarkston Community School staff to go through so that there is also a person or people at the other side going through these as well. I would caution you, AI is a good tool for a quick summary, but is not always to be trusted as the last word on it. So, in the next 5 years, the top priorities for Clarkston Community Schools. This is in order of ranking. The top is the highest ranked theme, and that is staff support and compensation. I urge you to look at these subtitles here because that really gets to the meat of what these are. These are headers that are sometimes hard to capture everything. So it's not just retaining high quality teachers, increasing salaries, it's about benefits. And there were statements about addressing the teacher shortage. There's some concern because we all have heard of the teacher shortage. Safety and security is a perfect example where you should read the text underneath. Emphasize not just building safety, but also within that is mental health and bullying prevention and security measures. So you'll also see some of that show up at the bottom with student support and well-being. Similarly, addresses mental health and social emotional learning and fostering. So I don't want to read the whole slide point by point, but I do want to point out that these are the top 5. So this should not be interpreted that student support and well-being is not a priority. All of these are priorities of those answering this question. These were just the 5 most common themes that came up. What other partnerships or programs do you think Clarkston Community Schools should explore? You can see here community and business partnerships, skilled trades, mental health and social emotional learning shows up again, life skills and financial literacy, and arts and extracurricular programs. We'll show you for this and for all these questions, I forgot to mention this, my apologies. We did break out staff versus solely parent responses because we were wondering if some of these were one way or the other for either group, and we actually found that they matched quite well across that. And if there was any difference, it was more of a, one was a 1, one was a 2, and then it flipped for the other. Nothing was different largely. Lastly, do you have ideas for how Clarkston Community Schools can help Clarkston? You'll find that the answers to this are very similar to the previous question. I think it would be fair to say some of this is just survey fatigue, which we usually see when you're reaching the end. But there is information in here about how it can make Clarkston be a better place. So you could interpret it as the community partnerships are a strong motivator for those wanting to stay within Clarkston. So you'll see here again, community partnerships, SEL shows up again. Arts and curricular programs is a little higher here, but again, skilled trades and financial literacy. So I know that was a lot, but I was wondering if you have any questions I could answer, or if I don't have the information in front of me, could possibly find it for you later. All right.
Well, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. And these were very, very excellent presentation. Thank you for all the hard work that was done in presenting this, and we have some valuable information that we can use as we move forward in the strategic planning process. Dr. Ryan, did you have anything that you wanted to?
No, I think it's an integral part. Again, hearing back, especially getting a little bit of an outside look with the support of local schools is very helpful in this, and I'm sure we're going to be turning some more questions, especially on the operational side. I'm sure Mr. Lucido is very interested to see some of the aspects of his department that came up really high in the community survey as we push forward together. So looking forward for the next steps of the overall process, and I'm excited to see where we're going to be going.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks again. Presentation item 5.2 is a update on our non-homestead election. Dr. Ryan?
Thank you. Ms. Kelly Allen's going to give us an update on the district's push. We have a very important item on our November 5th ballot. We're going to give an update on what we're doing to inform our community, the importance of the non-homestead vote has on Clarkston schools and our community as a whole.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. Thank you, Board. I'm here today to make sure that we are getting out the word, just one more step that we are taking as a district to ensure that our community is informed before they go to the polls or vote absentee, but before November 5th. So as Dr. Ryan mentioned, we do have the non-homestead millage renewal on the November ballot. Clarkston Community Schools is asking voters to consider a non-homestead operating millage renewal, allowing the district to continue levying 18 mills on non-homestead property. To clarify, non-homestead property includes businesses, commercial, and rental property. The renewal does not affect the taxes on the homes in which an individual lives. It is only levied on, as I mentioned before, the non-homestead, commercial, industrial, second homes, and rental properties. There are several important talking points as we discuss the different aspects of the millage. First off, it has been around since 1994. Our last conversation last month, we talked about since its inception, going back to when Proposal A was first put into place here in the state of Michigan. In 1994, that required all public school districts to levy 18 mills of that non-homestead millage to ensure full pupil funding. There we go. All right, the Clarkston community has supported this millage since its inception in 1994. All public school districts must go back to their voters at least every 20 years to reconsider that ballot question. I thought it was 10. I was just informed by Troon Law Firm today that it is in fact 20. So I learned something new today myself. But with that said, that doesn't mean we don't go out before then. In this case, we certainly aren't going out before then, but that has to do with as economics change in your area, the way the taxes are coming from our property values, there is a need to go back from time to time to make sure that we are at that 18 mills. We do ask for a Headley rollback, but we can't always anticipate how much of that we will need. So in the past, we have come back more frequently than that 20 years. And it's important to note that all the funds go to our general operating budget, which impacts all of our students and staff. That is different from our bond funding. That is something that many people want to understand the difference between the two. Bond funding, like the bond that we just passed in '22, goes specifically to projects that impact our facilities and our technology. It cannot go into our general operating budget. It is the exact opposite for the non-homestead millage that goes into the budget, which then pays for student programs, staffing, and essential services. By law, we cannot mix that money. They must stay in two separate buckets for an easier term. The financial facts with this non-homestead millage, it is projected to provide approximately $10 million to Clarkston schools in 2026. The state caps that 18 mills. We cannot take one bit more than, or we cannot levy, I should say, more than that 18 mills. It is a best practice I had mentioned earlier for that Headley rollback to avoid having to ask every single year for voters to come back and weigh in on this question. The exact amount on our ballot this time around is 25.8457. Again, we will not be levying that much. We only levy the 18 mills. The Headley rollback is a process essentially that reduces a local government's millage rate when the value of the taxable property increases faster than the rate of inflation. And it's important to note that this is not a new tax, it is a renewal. Once again, the properties that are affected by non-homestead millage are businesses, commercial properties, second homes, and rental properties. It will not impact a primary residence or qualifying agricultural properties. We have several important dates for those to note. Right now, the absentee voting window is open. It opened September 26th and remains open until November 4th. The voter registration deadline by mail or email is October 21st. October 26th through November 3rd is the early voting window. You can learn more on your township or city's website as to where you can do your early voting. November 1st is the absentee ballot request deadline by mail. November 4th, the absentee ballot request deadline in person. And all the way up to November 5th, someone can register in person with the appropriate forms and identification. They can register to vote up until actual election day, November 5th. And then again, election day, November 5th. Polls are open from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. The Michigan Voter Information Center, which we have listed here and is also linked on our district website, where we have a ton of further information about the non-homestead millage, is available. It can give you all the information as far as how, where to vote, all of the details that you would need. Again, just want to put out there the ballot language. There was conversation with our parent group, where it's a lot of words, right? You see this at the very end of the long ballot, and for some it may look a little bit intimidating. That's why we have that language out there and available on our website for you to read word for word. We have certainly broken it down to make it a little bit easier to understand, but it is here in its full entirety, explaining exactly what I just explained to you. But for those who get there and see that long column and they're wondering what it all means, we have all of that available for you on our website. And there's that website. It's our regular clarkston.k12.mi.us/community/non-homestead. Don't forget to vote by November 5th. Any questions?
Any questions for Mrs. Allen? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to our action items. Item 6.1 is approval of personnel changes. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the personnel changes as listed on the attached sheets.
Support.
Motion made and supported. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item 6.2 is the approval of a new van for our transportation department. May I have a motion, please?
I move the Board of Education approve the vehicle purchase to LaFontaine Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Lansing in the amount of $39,907 as presented.
Support.
Motion's made and supported. I know Mr. Goodman's in the audience. Any comments or questions on the motion? Mrs. Love?
Yeah, I would just like to have it explained why we only get one bid for this project instead of multiple, and used vehicles and things like that.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, why do we only get one bid as opposed to multiple bids? I know the answer because I asked ahead of time. I just wanted the public to hear.
Yeah, so we have the opportunity as a school district, to use a consortium bidding process. This one was, now I'm going to be tongue-tied. It's My deal, yes, thank you. Michigan deal, my deal. And so it's a pre-bid service, and they have Ford, Chrysler, GM, Chevy that we can go to these look for a vehicle, and they're already pre-purchased if they have them at those particular dealerships. So on this one that we're recommending tonight was LaFontaine. They were the awarded dealer through My Deal. And this is the vehicle they had in stock that met our purpose.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Goodman.
Yeah, thank you. I'll stay up here just in case you have.
That makes sense. Item 6.3 is the approval of some change orders for the helical piers at the junior high and the middle school fitness room unit. May I have a motion, please?
I move the Board of Education approve the construction change orders for J.J. Barney in the amount of $211,063 and for Professional Thermal Systems in the amount of $111,061 as presented.
Support.
Motion's made and supported. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you again, Mr.
Yeah,
Goodman.
thank you.
Item 6.4 is the approval of a proposed amendment to the Oakland County School Board Association. The rationale for this amendment was provided in the board packet. It's meant to address a somewhat unique situation with regard to their Board of Directors membership. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education votes to approve the recommended OCSBA bylaw amendment as presented.
Support.
Motion's made and supported. Mrs. Crane, do you have anything to add to this? As a member of that Board of Directors?
Yes, I'm also on that Board of Directors. This is a very unique situation. It's not specifically laid out here, but in case people didn't know, it will really only happen when a Board of Director moves from one board to another, and we have someone who is on our Board of Directors who's moving from a school board to the ISD board. And so we are just asking to amend it so that she can finish out the term for which she was elected, even though there will be two members from the ISD on our board at the same time. As soon as her term is up, one of them will have to step down.
Any questions or comments on the motion?
I have a question.
Mrs. McGinnis?
Was there any discussion that this issue could be alleviated other than changing the bylaws?
It would have to be one of them stepping down now, and we did talk about it, but since we don't have a lot of people stepping up to join the Board of Directors, we decided this would be the better.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. We have no report or discussion items. Item 9, citizen comments. At this point, citizens are welcome to address the board on any topic. At this point on the agenda, we did have one individual that did sign up, Mr. Joshua Ponce. If you could please come to the podium, and you have 2 minutes. And give us your name and address, please, for the record.
Okay. So, I am Joshua Ponce. I live at 4758 Park Ridge Drive in Waterford Township. And I come here in order to essentially express the ideals of student representation on the Clarkston Community School Board, because I am a student of Clarkston Community Schools. And essentially, the entire premise of the school board, if I'm not mistaken, of a school board, not the specific one, but in general, is to represent, at least in part, to represent the interests of the student body across not just a particular school, but in general. And as a result, it seems rather reasonable for students to directly have some sort of say in how the board is operated. Now, the proposal that we have laid out in the past is to have initially 3 representatives who are students who are going to be elected directly by the students. The board itself will have no role in these elections beyond just a merely administrative one. And these representatives will not have a binding vote on the board. They will not be board members. They will merely be people who have been selected by the student body to represent the interests and fundamentally just the interests of the students that have selected them. And initially, this will only apply to the high school students, and only the elections. The representatives will both be only from the high school, and also the only people who would be able to vote for them would be high school students. However, we hope that eventually we will be able to expand this system to include all Clarkston schools at some point. But currently, we believe it is best to limit it to the high school due to the fact that this proposal was first made through a petition last year, which accrued around 150 signatures, was proposed by and the petition was primarily signed by Clarkston High School students. And so we believe that temporarily this will be limiting this representation to the high school students would be the best option. Although I would like to reiterate for the third time that this is a temporary measure, and eventually we will be able to. We hope that this will be lifted and allow for broad representation of all students, as that is the mission of this idea fundamentally.
Great. Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. Not to respond, but just for the board's information, Dr. Ryan, Mr. Call, Mrs. Crane, and I did meet with a group of students who had submitted the petition. You can expect a presentation to be made at some point in the future once they've done some of their due diligence and have something in tangible form to present to us for our consideration. So stay tuned on that. Any other citizens that wish to address the board? Okay, with that, our next Board of Education meeting will be Monday, October 28th at 6 p.m. It is our financial workshop. Our next regular board meeting is Monday, November 11th. There will be a data workshop at 6 p.m. and then our regular meeting at 7 p.m. Item 11 is adjournment. May I have a motion, please?
Move to adjourn.
Support.
Motion made and supported. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.